Welcome to Horror Audio Series, where the veil between worlds grows thin, and every whisper might be a warning. Here, we don't just tell horror stories. We summon them. Turn down the lights. Turn up your fear. The nightmare begins now.
Some deaths refuse to rest. Some spirits refuse to leave. When the veil thins between the worlds, the soul possessor awakens. Welcome to Soul Possessor.
Chapter 6. The Death of Kristina's Mother. The wind came from the west that night, the direction the ancients once called Juong Am, the road to hell. It did not howl, it whispered. It slithered between thatched rooftops, along the cracked stone paths, through the gaps in wooden shutters. It carried with it a scent so thick, so revolting, that it clung to every surface it touched. Not merely the scent of rot or stagnant water, but the unmistakable stench of old, exhumed death. It wove through Kristina's tangled hair, left unbrushed for days, and settled like mildew in the hollow of her collarbone. The village no longer moved. It breathed only in stifled gasps. Every window remained shut, every door bound tight with blood charms. Yet none of it felt secure anymore. Since Joe's death, Kristina's house had become a silent prison wrapped in wards that no longer whispered promises of safety. Her mother had sealed every door with red threads soaked in her own blood. She'd lit fire after fire of powdered bone, mixed with ink and dried monkshood. The acrid smoke filled the entire kitchen, curling in sluggish patterns toward the ceiling, like the souls of the newly dead struggling to ascend. Amulet ash gathered in corners and on the walls, thick as cremation dust, gray, curling, clinging. And the smell was the smell of a corpse left half burned, half finished, half forgotten. Kristina didn't speak anymore. Words had begun to rot inside her like forgotten fruit. Her throat was raw from holding in screams. Joe's blood still clung to her fingernails, hardened into dark red crescents, embedded so deeply they felt like scars. Something inside her had hollowed out, not wide enough to be called grief, not deep enough for rage. Just a tiny, growing void where something once sacred had been scraped clean. Whenever she closed her eyes now, she heard voices, not whispers, chants, hundreds of them, out of tune, unrecognizable, low, guttural, like voices coming from within walls or beneath the temple floorboards. They didn't speak any language she knew, but her soul flinched at every syllable, like a hunted animal sensing the breath of a predator behind the door. That morning, even the forest had gone still. Not silent. Still. The kind of stillness that comes when something wrong is listening. The rooster crowed at dawn, but it was hoarse, cracked, as if choking on phlegm. And the first children who rose, those sent to fetch water, were the ones who saw it. Sparrows. Dozens. Scattered like trash along the temple road, their small bodies contorted into grotesque shapes. Necks bent backward, eyes rolled into white, tiny tongues hanging out stiff as nails. The ground beneath them was speckled with dark blood, dried, but fresh enough to still carry heat. Every bird faced the same direction. West. Inside the back room of her house, Kristina sat with her knees drawn to her chest, her breath fogging the surface of an old wooden chest. Her father's. It hadn't been touched in years. The iron lock was rusted over, eaten by time and dampness. Yet when she opened it, it made no sound. No resistance. As if it had been waiting for her. Inside, a piece of dark, blood-stained cloth, stiff with age. A half-burnt photograph, whose corners had curled like fingers in agony, and a thin, near-translucent piece of paper, more parchment than page, delicate enough that it might crumble with breath alone. The photograph was nearly lost to age and fire, but she could still make out 3 figures, her father, young and tense. Beside him, Master Lee, his expression serene. And between them, a woman whose face was obscured entirely by a ceremonial red scarf, the kind used in forbidden rituals long erased from temple records. On the back, written in a hand so jittery it resembled scratches, "We thought we could kill him, but he still lives." Kristina's fingers trembled as she clutched the parchment, the edges cutting into her skin. Her mouth was dry. She tried to breathe, but each inhale carried the stench of damp floorboards, of old medicine, of incense, and of something else. Something breathing with her. Outside, the wind moved through the bamboo grove. The canes knocked together with soft, hollow sounds, like ribs in a graveyard breeze. The scent of soil and charred root rose from the ground, curling into her nostrils like smoke from a funeral urn. The sun didn't set that day. It simply faded, like an old oil lamp burning through its last sputtering drops of life. By the time the sky turned gray, her mother had locked the house again. She placed a bowl of steaming black medicine on the table. It was thick as syrup, bubbling quietly, its color so deep it seemed to drink the light around it. The smell it gave off was nauseating, like fermented blood and crushed bone soaked in rice wine. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Something was coming, and it would come tonight. Midnight. The sky above the village was a blanket of suffocating darkness. No stars, no moon. Just clouds, low, swollen, as if the heavens themselves were bearing witness but dared not open their eyes. They hung there, thick as the skin of an ancient beast, crawling across the rooftops. Occasionally, a glimmer of lightning flared behind them, but never reached the ground. And the wind. It didn't howl, it scraped, dragging itself along the old brick paths, clawing at shutters, rattling loose tiles. The trees didn't sway. They twisted as though straining to escape the soil. A sound rose from that wind, not natural. A slow, rhythmic tapping, not like rain, like bone on wood. Kristina sat frozen in the dark, every muscle in her body pulled taut as wire. Her chest heaved with shallow breaths, the smell of burning ash thick in her nose. The small oil lamp on the floor flickered violently. Its flame didn't waver with the wind. It danced as though reacting to something watching. And then, the tapping stopped. A stillness. A beat too long. And then, tap, 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 at the door. Kristina's mother stood. No hesitation, no fear. In her right hand was a half-burned amulet, still glowing red at the edges. In her left, a rusted ceremonial knife, its curved blade dulled by time, but still sharp enough to open skin. The firelight caught her face. Sweat soaked through her temples, drawing jagged trails through the ash on her cheeks. But her eyes were dry, not with courage, but something colder. Resignation. She stepped forward and unlocked the door. Just a crack, and the wind rushed in. It wasn't cold. It was hollow, as though it had passed over thousands of graves before arriving here. And standing just outside, silhouetted in the doorway, was her father. Or rather, what once wore his skin. His body looked as if it had clawed its way up from a flooded tomb. His face sagged slightly on one side, as if the muscle had already begun to rot. His eyes were milky white, and his feet were bare, coated in a thick layer of grave mud. His hair clung to his scalp in wet ropes, matted with blood and dirt. He wore a crooked smile. Not a human one, a puppet's. Lips curled without joy, without tension, just stretched like something behind them was pulling the strings. He didn't step inside. He drifted, as if drawn in by the very breath of the house. And then, just behind him, another shadow. A figure stepped forward. No feet touched the ground. Its robes dragged behind like living ink. Its face was hidden beneath a blood-soaked red veil, clinging to the skull beneath. The cloth pulsated as if something beneath it was still breathing. Two eyes glowed faintly behind the veil, red as coals, watching not the room, but Kristina, a dark priest. He held the head of a snake in one hand, its mouth sewn shut with black string, and with the other he made signs in the air, symbols so old they had been forgotten by language. His lips never moved, but still he chanted. The words burned. From the edge of the courtyard, a third figure appeared. It did not walk. It scraped, as though dragged forward by unseen ropes, its limbs limp and disjointed. Master Li. His cassock was reduced to rags, soaked in soot and blood. Around his neck he wore a rosary, but not of wood or jade. Each bead was an eyeball, lidless and open, some milky, some freshly wet, rolling independently as he moved. Each time the rosary clinked, Kristina flinched. The sound was not like beads. It was the dry scrape of bone on bone, like vertebrae grinding against stone. And with every step Master Li took, the earth beneath his feet cracked. The tiles broke. The bricks sank. It was as though the ground itself wanted to flee from him. Kristina's breath hitched. Her hands shook as she tried to back away, but her knees were locked. Her chest clenched so tightly it felt like a fist had wrapped around her heart. Her mother stepped forward. Not a word. No spell. No incantation. No desperate plea. Only the knife. And a gaze so filled with quiet sorrow, it could split the soul. She turned, locking eyes with Kristina one last time. The tears had returned now, heavy, trembling on her lashes. You must live, at all costs. And then she ran, not to Kristina, but straight toward him, her husband, or the thing that had once been. The blade glinted once in the moonless dark, then met flesh. The squelch was sharp. The blood that splattered hit the door, the steps, the wind. But it was not enough. Her father's arms lashed out. With unnatural speed, he seized her mother and wrapped the white mourning robe, her own, around her throat. One motion, one brutal pull. The fabric, damp with sweat and blood, twisted like a noose. Her body thrashed, legs kicking, mouth wide in a silent scream. Blood sprayed from her ears, from her eyes, from her nostrils. Her spine bent at an angle that should have broken her instantly, yet her body clung on, convulsing, twitching, weeping. The bricks beneath her turned black, blood soaked into the cracks like ink into parchment, spiraling outward into a mark, a familiar mark. The symbol of Satana's, the eye within the spiral, the seal of death. Kristina screamed. The sound came out raw and thin, as though she were coughing up her lungs. She ran forward, but the wind slapped her back. Outside, 3 silhouettes stood motionless in the storm. The broken father, the blind priest, the monk who no longer prayed, and in the middle, her mother, collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Her face was turned to Kristina, her eyes wide open. But there was no breath left, only the faint shimmer of love and sacrifice clinging to the glassy surface of her gaze. Too late. Too late to scream. Too late to fight. Too late to save. For a moment, time collapsed. The wind died. The rain held its breath. The mist thickened around the corpses and shadows, cocooning the yard in an eerie stillness, as if the entire world had stepped back to let horror pass unchallenged. Kristina collapsed to her knees at the threshold. Her mother's lifeless body was just feet away, neck contorted at a terrible angle, lips parted mid-breath, as if still trying to speak a final word. The white, mourning robe around her throat was dyed the deep red of old blood. Her limbs were sprawled like a broken doll, and standing before that ruin was her father, or what remained. He didn't move, didn't breathe. His blood-soaked hands still trembled, not in grief, not from exhaustion, but from a hunger now awakened. Something inhuman had tasted rebellion, and liked it. Then a boom, not thunder. It was too deep, too dry, like bones snapping beneath the weight of a monstrous footfall. It echoed down from the mountains, where the graveyard slept beneath black trees, and in a blink, Master Lee appeared. He didn't walk. He was just suddenly there, right in front of her, as though the darkness itself had carried him. His skin was ash-colored and tight, like parchment stretched over a cracked jar. His cassock hung from his frame like burnt cloth, singed edges whispering in the wind. His rosary of eyes clicked with every slight movement, and each eye turned to look at her. He said nothing, but Kristina's body screamed. She turned to run. 1 step, 2. But the rosary unraveled from his hands and flew forward, a blur of bone and blood. It coiled around her neck like a serpent. Before she could scream, a violent tug yanked her backward. Her spine struck the corner of a stone pillar. Crack, and pain flooded her vision. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Blood spilled from her lips as if she were vomiting her very soul. She struggled to breathe. The air wouldn't come. Her limbs trembled uselessly. Then came the touch. Master Lee crouched beside her. One hand gently touched her head, brushing through her hair like a father would a frightened child. Then, he began to pull. Not her head. Her hair. Strand by strand. Slowly. Deliberately. As if removing threads from a tapestry of memory. Kristina's screams were hoarse and raw. She flailed blindly. Her hand found something. Sharp. Cold. A broken roof tile. She jabbed it forward straight into his chest. It sank in, but no blood flowed. Master Lee didn't recoil. He simply tilted his head and smiled. But the smile did not stretch skin. It tore it. His cheeks cracked like paper, revealing long rows of gray teeth caked in centuries of grave dust. He didn't speak, but the air grew colder. He reached forward and lifted her by the throat. Her feet dangled above the ground. The cold set in. Her vision blurred. Her pulse became a soft drumming in her ears, overlaid with the distant dragging sound of something massive, crawling from the depths of the earth. Then, a voice. Hoarse. Ancient. A woman's. Kristina. It cut through the noise like a blade of ice through flesh. The priest stepped forward, his red veil lifting with the breeze, and beneath it, her face. Lucy's mother. The same woman from photographs. The one Kristina remembered from long ago festivals, holding little Lucy close. Her features were warped now, gaunt, gray, half dead. Blood crusted at the corners of her mouth. Her eyes were bottomless wells filled with shadow. But she was not dead. She bowed deeply, not to Kristina, but to Kristina's father. Then she stepped forward. In her hands was a porcelain bowl, and it trembled as she walked, as if something inside was trying to escape. Not liquid, something alive. Kristina stared, unable to speak, unable to move. The wind whistled, not like breath, but like metal, dragged across ancient stone. Mother Lucy raised her eyes, now glowing, ember red. "When he killed Master Li," she said, "when he ate your father's soul, I begged." Her voice cracked, but it was not weak. "And he spared me. In return, I became a priest. I guide the blood back to its source." She held the bowl up high. It pulsed. From it, blood dripped. Not red, but black, with a shimmer like oil. It hit the ground with soft hissing sounds. Around them, ash that had lain dormant for years rose into the air, circling Kristina's body, weaving tight like a net made of the breath of the dead. Then, a sound. Not human, not animal. It came from beneath the ground. The earth thudded, as if something massive was climbing toward the surface. From the corner of Kristina's eye, she saw her father, no longer hunched, no longer still. Now he moved with purpose. One step, then another. Every time his foot touched the soil, it sank. Not because he was heavy, but because the earth recoiled. He stepped into the center of the spiral, drawn in blood and sealed with death. He raised a hand. Blood seeped from his fingers, but it was no longer black. It was deep crimson, and it smelled sweet, like roasted flesh soaked in incense. No one spoke. No words were needed. The ritual was alive, and so was he. The whistling wind became a howl. The ash spiraled higher. The symbols drawn on the bricks around the spiral burned, not with flame, but with a light as black as ink. Living ink. Kristina's body was paralyzed. From above, thunder rolled. From below, bones cracked. The world was folding inward. Her father turned toward her, his eyes now pits of writhing shadow. He laughed, but it wasn't a laugh, it was a chorus. 1,000 voices, broken and muffled, whispering all at once. 3 who once sealed me. Now ash beneath my feet. A teacher, a follower, a traitor. All bowed. All knelt. All died. Kristina bit down on her tongue. Blood ran down her chin. Her vision blurred again. She looked up and saw her mother's soul. It shimmered like moonlight through water, fragile and soft. Hovering just above the ground, hands raised as if in prayer. Her eyes met Kristina's, strong, sad, full of defiance. But it was too late. Her father, or Satnus, snapped his head toward the soul. His mouth opened wide, rows of fangs, not human, not beast, something worse. He lunged, and with a monstrous snarl, devoured her soul, ripping it from the air and swallowing it whole. It tore in like mist, screamed like memory. Then, silence. Mother Lucy stepped forward. Her mouth moved, muttering ancient syllables from a forgotten tongue, spoken in tones only the dead could understand. She raised a hand. From the 4 corners of the spiral, trenches burst into black flame. Fire made of hunger. Lines of darkness curled through the air, twisting like serpents made of ink and bone, crawling across the floor, winding around Kristina's arms, her legs, her chest. She couldn't move. She couldn't scream. She didn't need to. She understood. The ceremony had begun. The ceremony had begun. That was chapter 6 of Soul Possessor. But the nightmare has just begun. Secrets still hide in shadows. Spirits still hunger. And the demon is not done yet. Stay with us for the next episode. The true horror awaits. Possessor, but the nightmare has just begun. Secrets still hide in shadows. Spirits still hunger. And the demon is not done yet. Stay with us for the next episode. The true horror awaits.
Thank you for listening to Horror Audio Series. If the silence feels heavier tonight, if the darkness lingers longer than usual, you've already opened the door, and something may have followed you through. Don't forget to subscribe, because next time, it might be your story we tell. Sleep, if you can.